Okay guys, you're going to create something a lot like this, but on one of your 11 by 14 sheets of paper. There's also a map of this on the Google Classroom that's just made as a PDF with all the information typed out. It's a little easier to see. And we're going to fill in all these colors, mix some colors, and do some things to try and figure out how to work with paint. Alright, so I got my palette set up, and I want you guys to get your palette set up. So I've got my cool blue, my cool blue here, and that's the phthalo blue. It's mostly the only blue that is going to be the cool blue, and it might be, they might have written the whole thing out, phthalo acronym or whatever it is, but that's phthalo blue is the cool blue. Now, if I've got just like a primary blue or blue like that, I can also use that as a cool blue. This is my warm blue. Ultramarine blue is basically what it is. It might actually be called warm blue. Cadmium yellow medium. Cadmium yellow light. So these yellows are actually warm and cool. You may also have a yellow Anzo. You might have a lemon yellow for your cool yellow. Your warm yellows are mostly going to be cadmium or cadmium hues. Cadmium red medium is your warm red. Your cool red is going to be cadmium red deep, alizarin crimson, deep magenta. There's a lot of different names for it. If you guys have a question, you can always just ask me to pause the video and ask me which color is which for you. Okay? And I've got a little bit of the white right here. So I'm going to set it up here. Alright, so I got my chart here. So I'm going to just start painting. So when I see warm red, that's easy. I'm going to get my brush, and I'm going to get my warm red, and I'm going to paint it on there. Now, there's two ways to get nice clean lines with paint. Like, my edges should be clean. And the two ways are to either use enough paint, because if I don't have enough paint, I'll get a torn edge. And the other way is to add a very little bit of water to the paint. That can also give you a nice clean line. Okay? Now I'm done with that, but I want to wash out my brush. So I'm going to paint it back and forth like I'm painting. I don't want to scrub it so the bristles are like face down on the bottom. I want to brush one way, lift, brush back the other way so that I'm actually cleaning the bristles without ruining them. And I'm going to squeeze mine out by hand. You could dab them off with a paper towel. Now I'm going to go to cool red, and this is going to help me later. Cool red is the alizarin or the cadmium red deep or the deep magenta. Those kinds of colors are going to be my cool red. You guys should be kind of following along with me. Painting it back and forth. You want to know what I'm talking about? I paint it and I lift it. And then I paint it back and I lift it. I'm never scrubbing through the bristles because then I'm trying to bend them backwards. And you don't ever want to do that with your bristles. So then warm yellow. And we're kind of just going to practice painting clean lines here so my edges are nice and clean. My paint is not going out of the lines. My edges aren't torn. Cool yellow. Notice how I'm going diagonally because they're kind of in the same order. As a general rule, mixing cool yellow and cool blue will give you a good, just spread it out a little to make sure which one's which. Mixing cool yellow and cool blue will give you actually a good green. This is my cool blue, so I'm going to come down here and do it. Or did I screw up? I might have screwed up. Okay, and I'll mix that. And what's supposed to be my warm blue, but I think I did it backwards. It's hard on this magazine to tell. I definitely did it backwards. So I'm going to let that blue dry, and then I'm going to paint over it with white. And the reason I'm going to let it paint over it with white and not a different blue is if I paint over it with the other blue, these colors are somewhat translucent. That means that these colors can be seen through. So if I was to just put the cool blue there now, instead of putting the white down, the colors would optically mix. Okay, and that's important because also if the light is going through the paint, hitting the paper and bouncing back at our light, we get a much more intense color because it's like glowing with that color instead. But let's just mess around with the yellows a little bit. So I'm going to find warm yellow and warm red. So I'm going to mix the warm yellow and the warm red here. Mixing a small amount. Warm yellow, warm red right here. I didn't mix enough paint. Mix a little more. One thing I'm noticing is that the yellow is not very strong and the red is very strong. That's always the case. Yellow is always a weak color. Okay? So if you ever want to mix, you need to mix extra yellow if you want it to have an equal weight or value in the relationship. So I always talk about a fair fight between a cat and a mouse. How many mice need to show up to the fight before it becomes a fair fight? And yellow is like that. Yellow is like a mouse. And red's like a cat. And blue is like a dog. And black is like a dragon. They will just take over those colors. So you want to use really small amounts when you get into mixing those colors. And yellow, it's a mouse. So yellow can't do a whole lot by itself. So it needs to be mixed. So I'm going to take some more of that warm yellow, some of the warm red. Again, my mouse. I need some more mice to come to the game. And you're like, why did you have me get so many different kinds of paint? And I want to show you guys some of the ways that it matters and that different kinds of colors will mix differently to create more neutralized versions or different versions of these colors. Okay? So what I want you guys to do is I want you to go through and fill out this chart that you made. Okay? The whole chart, I want you to fill it out and with nice clean lines. And we're all going to stay on. In case any of you have questions, you could just unmute and speak and I will grab you. And then the rest of the class will be working on this here. Okay? Wait, I did something wrong here. See, I've got cool red and warm yellow here. I should have put that where I have cool red and warm yellow. I kind of made a mistake, so I'm like making extra work for myself. So don't do that. There should be, aside from just the basics and the white mixes, there should be 2 of every color. So when you go to mix these, make sure that you use both of those, fill both of the circles when you mix that color. Don't start over every time. Alright, so I'm working here. I got almost all of it done, learning some things, and now I get to the bottom here, and it's to white. I gotta mix white in, and that's pretty easy. I only have to mix one of them. I don't have to have 2 little packets. I'm trying to keep a clean edge on all my colors. Not 100% successful, but I'm doing it. And trying to keep my colors on my palette clean. Like I'm just scooping a little bit from the side and mixing it. So I'm not like wrecking this whole pile. I'm just taking a little, putting it on the side, taking a little of the other color, putting that on the side. So I want to make sure that I'm careful like that. And then I get to these 2 and they say gradient and they say, and I'm supposed to mix them with white. So let's start mixing this cool red with the white. That makes a nice pink color. Okay. So I'm going to mix it, put it on here, pull it in a little nice and thick so that I can have paint to work with. And I want to be quick because what will happen is this color is already drying. That's one of the things about acrylic, both the complaints and the pros of acrylic is that it dries quickly. So if you want it to dry quickly, that's awesome. If you want it to stay wet to blend, you gotta paint it quick and you gotta work quickly. I didn't even fully clean my brush, so I'm trying not to get that dirty side over here. But when I get down here, start blending these colors, I might actually on purpose turn that dirty side down. A little more of that pink over here. Blending these colors while they're both wet and blending them back and forth. Trying to make a transition that's more white yellow on this side and more pink on the other side. That's pretty good. Good transition. Cleanish edges. Doing my best. So now I'm going to get the cool yellow. A little dirty. And the white. I'm going to make this one real white just to mix it up. Also because that's what happened. Like not even fully on purpose. Okay. So, brought that cool white color in. And now I'm going to use the warm with the white. The warm blue with the white. You can really see the difference in the blues when I add the white. So that's pretty good. Wish the edges were a little cleaner, but I got a nice clean transition there. Okay, then I'm looking at these outside circles, and I already did one because actually when I mixed one of these cool and warm, the blues and reds, I had a nice deep color, and so I just added the yellow. So that's cool blue, cool red, and a little bit of yellow. It's almost black. It's not quite black, but it's almost black. So here I got warm yellow. If I could remember which orange was the right orange, I could use that, but I don't. A little bit of red, a medium amount of red, a lot of warm yellow, a medium amount of red, and a warm blue. Just a little, because it's strong. And if I feel like it's going towards green too much, I could always add a little more red, a little more yellow. And if I brought it back to orange too much, I could add back a little more of that blue, and I'm like barely touching it. So orange is the base pretty much for all skin tones. It's a neutralized orange, so it's mostly orange with a little bit of blue. Now, whether it's a red orange or a yellow orange that's been neutralized, or how much white has been added back into that orange depends. And you could actually mix almost every skin color just using that concept for everyone. Okay, so I got a lot of white here, a little warm yellow, a little warm red, a teeny bit of warm blue. Wait, that's the same color I mixed here, but with white in it. So I'm going to literally just scoop some white and mix that in there. A lot of white. Now this, I want to add a little more of the red. I feel like I might have overdone it, but. So I'm mixing this color here. Kind of looks like a Band-Aid. But you know what's funny is people will be like, oh, that color is so gross. And then I'll take their hand and paint it on their hand, and it's literally more intense and lighter than their own skin color. And they're like, oh my god! Yeah, just like that. So thinking about the way colors really are instead of like believing the cartoon colors that have been bred in us is important. Cool yellow. Lots of it because it's a mouse. It's a little dirty. That might work for me actually. Cool yellow. Cool blue. Supposed to put a little cool red in it. Or warm red. Go get a little warm red. Might have done too much, but that's okay. What I should be ending up with here is a neutral green. To neutralize a color, the easiest, quickest way to do it, this is a super brown green because I added too much red. To neutralize a color, the easiest way to do it is when you mix two of these colors, two of these three colors, red, blue, and yellow, if you mix two of them, adding the third one will neutralize it. And again, if I use one color, like if I'm just starting with red and I want to neutralize it, I'll actually mix both the other colors with it. And that'll help me neutralize it. So, look at that, even dry, darker, it's still lighter than my hand. So, cool blue, the last one. Cool blue, white. And white is strong. White might be stronger than all of them in its way. Warm yellow, a little bit. Warm red, an even smaller amount. So what I should be ending up with is a neutral blue-gray color. And if it's not gray enough, then you could add more of the red and yellow. If it's too blue, add more of the red and the yellow. If it's too green, add more red, because that's the opposite. And if it's too violet, you could come back and add a little more yellow. That's probably not going to happen, though. Much more likely to jump to green. All right, so that's it. That's what you got to get done today. Fill it all out. If you finish early, you can just kind of like practice painting other colors. You can mix some other recipes and like write them in there. Try some things out. I want you to hold on to this as we move forward because it's kind of going to be a guide for you. And now I'm going to go clean out my brushes really well, wash them. If they're brushes I really want to keep, I'm going to make sure I get all the paint out of them. And I've actually kept my brush in the water when I wasn't using it this whole time. Here's my other brush. It is in the water still. I'm wiping it through the bristles gently, so I'm not pulling the hairs out. And what I can do is, as I wash it, I can kind of shape it so that when it dries, it's kind of got the shape that I want. I could also put a little bit of dish soap in my hand and gently paint it in, and that'll really help it shape and let it dry like that, and then just wash it out next time you use your brush, right before you use your brush. Okay? So then this palette here, if you wanted to, you could keep this in a Tupperware, spray it, or put a sponge in with it. but I'm just going to tear this off because I was careful and didn't take too much extra paint. Tear it up, throw it in a trash can. Set my brushes somewhere flat to dry, like lay them on the table like you see here. And then I'm also going to dump my water, clean it, wash my hands, and I'm done. Take a picture of this when it's done and turn it in.